Boys and girls, China, what's up? It's your boy Brandon Lewis here on Brandon's World on this Friday, September 11th, 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, it feels so good to be here with you on this Friday. Of course, the 19th anniversary of one of the darkest days in the history of our country. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Again, you can follow the show on Twitter at real_BWorld and check us out on Facebook at Real Brandon's World. Also, don't forget, we are on Anchor. We are on iTunes. We are on Spotify. We are on Google Play. And man, I am ready to go today. In hour number 2, we are going to have as the Mike co-host, plus WKSU News Intern, plus the new sports director of Squirrel Radio here in Kent, Ohio, Sean Fitzgerald on. Of course, Sean has been on many times before. We're going to have him on today for the second hour, just like we had his co-host Enzo Orlando on last week. You guys missed that interview. That clip is up on my YouTube channel. Sometime this semester, we will get Enzo and Sean in the same room together. But just because I haven't talked to Sean and Enzo in a while, I wanted to keep their interviews separate. So that's why we get Enzo one week, Sean this week. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I may end up putting all my clips on YouTube. We'll see. But I will tell you, this will be one of the best shows of the semester. I think it might be the best one. We have so much to talk about. There's so much going on in the world of sports right now. Of course, the MLB is closing in on their regular season. We have the NBA bubble in the playoffs. We're getting close to the conference finals. Raptors, Celtics, Game 7 tonight. The winner will take on the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. Of course, the Lakers and Clippers could clinch the Western Conference Finals here in the next day or two. But the thing I'm most excited about, ladies and gentlemen, by far, and the thing that we are going to spend the majority of our show on today is indeed the NFL. Because yes, ladies and gentlemen, the NFL is back. And last night, the Kansas City Chiefs defeated the Houston Texans, a final score of 34-20. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am very impressed by what I saw at Kansas City. There's 2 takeaways I had from last night's game that are really non-game related. The first one is, overall this season, coaching is going to matter more. I've said this so many times on this show. I've said it so many times on Squirrel Radio when I was on there. I've said it all the way throughout the summer. The NFL is the sport where coaching matters the most. We all know that. However, particularly this year, and let's be honest, particularly in the first 4 weeks of this season, usually September, coaches like Bill Belichick and Sean Payton, if you're 2-2 in September, they're okay with that. They like to take September as kind of feeling out process, try new guys, try new formations, see how they can play defense, see how they can play offense, and then they start molding into mid-season form. And you really don't know how good the football team really is until November. Well, because of the COVID situation, and we saw it again last night, Andy Reid's football team in Kansas City, I know they brought back 20 of their 22 starters on defense, but 20 of their 22 starters overall, just not on defense, because there's only 11 on defense. But Andy Reid overall was more prepared than Bill O'Brien's Houston Texans. Okay, Bill O'Brien looked like a complete mess from the opening jump. The Texans looked like a complete mess. And Bill O'Brien, I bet you right now that you're wishing that you still had DeAndre Hopkins instead of a broken down David Johnson. Now I get it. David Johnson had 11 carries, 77 yards, and a touchdown. But it didn't matter. Why? Because the Chiefs' game plan around the Texans was better than the Texans' game plan according to the Chiefs. Now, I get it, man. The Chiefs are loaded. They got Patrick Mahomes. They got this new rookie running back out of LSU, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who, my goodness, looks like the rookie of the year already in the National Football League. I mean, the guy was a beast. The guy had 25 carries for 138 yards last night, with over 5 yards of up and a touchdown. They got Tyreek Hill. They got Sammy Watkins. They got McCall Hardman. They got Demarcus Robinson. They got Travis Kelce. They got all the weapons in the world. I get it. But Houston last night just looked completely unprepared. Their best defensive player, and I would argue their second best player on the team, J.J. Watt, only had 2 tackles, 1 solo tackle, no sacks. They didn't sack Patrick Mahomes. They barely got any pressure on Patrick Mahomes. They didn't make life difficult. They played zone coverage. They let Travis Kelce pick them apart. Travis Kelce had 6 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown. I mean, the game plan to me was a bad game plan. The second thing particular that I noticed last night was and again, it was only a 1-game sample size, so we are going to have to go off this week and next week and a couple weeks after. But I got to say this, man. To go along with the fact that coaching is going to definitely matter, especially as I said, the first month of the season, the better coaches, I mean, this was a bad night for the preseason is necessary crowd. Now, I was one of those people. I said, man, you got to have at least 1 or 2 preseason games. And there's a lot of guys that are going to lose jobs because they don't have their opportunity to shine in that 4th preseason game. You know, preseason is where you build your special teams. Preseason is where you practice not holding, not committing penalties. My goodness, like I said, Andy Reid's team, 1 penalty for 5 yards. It was 1 false start in the 3rd quarter. That was it. They weren't penalized in the first half. Now, Cleet Blakeman's crew, particularly, is one of those crews who don't call a lot of flags. I understand that as well. But you got to understand, man, the Texans were jumping off sides. They were committing false starts. They were holding. They were illegal contact. So there were penalties to be there. And by the way, there were some times where I thought, the Texans moved early and they didn't call it. And so it's preseason for the officials too. But at the same time, man, I thought the Chiefs were just overall better prepared. They were better coached. They're the better football team, and that's what comes down to it. And quite frankly, I feel terrible for Deshaun Watson. And Deshaun Watson last night was 20 of 32. He had a completion percentage of 63%, which isn't great, but it might do you enough to win a football game if your defense is good. Well, he had 253 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. He did carry the ball 6 times for 27 yards and a touchdown. But besides Will Fuller, who had a good game, he got 8 balls for 112 yards. That award, that's actually number 1 wide receiver numbers. Randall Cobb and Brandon Cooks combined. Remember, they got Randall Cobb over from Dallas in free agency, and they traded with the Rams to get Brandon Cooks. They combined for 4 catches for 43 yards. That won't cut it. 2 guys only catching 4 balls. That won't do it. Darren Foles and Jordan Akins are 2 tight ends. They did have a touchdown, but between them, only 4 balls caught. That won't do it either. And, you know, I think Al Michaels and Chris Collins were singing on the broadcast. The Texans' idea of trading DeAndre Hopkins was, okay, we're not going to let Deshaun Watson get in. We're going to dump it down. We're going to move the ball. We have pretty good wide receivers. But in my opinion, man, trading DeAndre Hopkins, and we saw it last night, in my opinion, was a monumental error by, in my opinion, the worst general manager in the league. He's also a bottom 5 head coach and a bottom 5 offensive coordinator in Bill O'Brien. Deshaun Watson is a special talent, man. He kept fighting. He kept producing. The Texans tried to make it interesting late. But by then, the Chiefs were like, this team stinks. I mean, David Johnson, like I said, he was able to move the ball. And miraculously enough, the Texans actually ran the ball 22 times. They only threw the ball 32 times. And a game that was a blowout for most of the game, you would actually expect that run-pass number to be a little bit less balanced. I know 10 passes is a lot more than runs, but I'm talking like I would expect it to be almost, 42-12. You're getting blown out by that much. And, offensive-minded, I would think that, but that wasn't the case. On the other hand, Kansas City, they actually ran the ball more than they threw it. And remember, last year, they became the first team ever to win the Super Bowl with, less than 25 carries a game. They were the 6th fewest carries in the league at 23 a game, and they won the Super Bowl. And now they can run the ball with this Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, this team looked very good. Them and the Ravens look like the two top favorites in the AFC. But by far, man, the Chiefs. I mean, we know a little bit how you can stop Baltimore. Load the box. Make Lamar Jackson throw the football. If he beats us with his arm, that's fine. We're not going to let him beat us with his legs. The Chiefs are like, man, if we blitz, Patrick Mahomes is going to tear us apart. Man, if we play zone, Patrick Mahomes is going to tear us apart. So, in my opinion, you almost got to play 4. You got to play like nickel cover 2 man, and you just got to hope that your cornerbacks are fast enough to keep up, and you have a good safety who can go man up with Travis Kelce. I think that's your best plan. You have to try to contain Mahomes and keep him in the pocket because when he's on the outside, he's as dangerous as ever. But, man, I felt bad for Weaver last night, the new Texans defensive coordinator. I feel bad for Gus Bradley, the Chargers defensive coordinator next week. I feel bad for Wink Martindale, the Ravens defensive coordinator in week 3. And I feel bad for every defensive coordinator that has to face Patrick Mahomes because this guy, remember last year when Patrick Mahomes said he was just beginning to read defenses? Man, what a scary, scary time it is to be a fan of no other team besides the Chiefs in the AFC, besides maybe the Ravens. I mean, this team is special, and they could go all the way this year. They are potentially the Super Bowl champions at the end of 2021, and they may be the first team to go back-to-back since New England in 2004. All right, well, I want to move on here to baseball because the Indians had a very disappointing series against the Kansas City Royals. Now, they took the opening game of the 4-game set, but then they dropped 3 straight. So we are looking at right now the Indians are going to be 2 games back for the AL number 1 seed of the A's. They are actually right now 1.5 games back of the White Sox for first place in the AL Central. And going into this season, we all saw the improvement on paper of the Chicago White Sox. But our biggest question was their pitching. It was our biggest question with Minnesota as well, was their pitching. Well, you take a look at the way the American League is set up and the way the MLB set up these new playoff rules, it really is going to do a detriment, in my opinion, to whoever finishes 3rd in the AL Central. Look, we pretty much know the 8 playoff teams that are going to be in the American League. It's going to be the 2 teams from the American League West, the A's winning the division with Houston as a wild card. It's going to be the 3 teams in the AL East with the Rays winning the division, the Yankees and Blue Jays as wild cards. And it's going to be the 3 teams in the AL Central with one of the teams winning the division and the 2 others being wild cards. So here's the thing. Yesterday, the Indians were 26-17. Yesterday, the Indians were 26-17. That was good enough to be the number 4 seed right behind the White Sox. They were a half game behind the White Sox to being the number 3 seed. They would have played the Blue Jays at the playoffs and yesterday in the best out of 3 in the wild card round. And by the way, I'm going to talk to Sean Fitzgerald about this in the second hour of the show. I'm very interested to see what his thoughts are on the 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, and 4 versus 5 in the best out of 3 wild card round. Because as we saw this past weekend with the Indians, you can lose 2 games in a row to a bad team sometimes in baseball. Just the way the ball bounces. The Indians pitching did not have a good series. The Indians hitting did not have a good game last night. I mean, the Royals no hit us for 6 innings. It was not very good. And right now, because of that 1 loss, the Indians have dropped all the way down to the 7th seed. Now, I know everybody's playing in the bubble, so they won't have to travel. That's another element I want to talk to Sean about because I feel like that's hurting the cold weather teams and helping the warm weather teams because, cold weather teams are built on, hey, we don't have to have a lot of inning. We need to have timely inning. We can have good pitching because ideally it's going to be cold out when the playoffs hit. Pitching and bullpens are going to matter. If you go to a warm weather city, I would argue it's going to increase the inning and it may give a team like the Indians a disadvantage. As we saw, this offense is still not perfect this week, and now we have a big series going up against the Minnesota Twins. However, I will say this. The Indians right now are actually only a half a game back of the 4 seed because of the fight with Minnesota, but they are right now the 7 seed, which means they would take on the Rays, who are in a virtual tie with the A's for the number 1 seed in the American League. Take a look at this real quick. It would go A's versus Yankees, Rays against the Indians, Astros against the White Sox, and the Blue Jays against the Twins. But again, this could all change overnight. The 8 teams are pretty much a lock. I think it comes down to seeding at this point. I think when you look at it, the Indians could potentially also be the number 1 seed. And again, we know the Dodgers are the number 1 seed in the National League, but if they lose 2 straight games, they could be out in the wild card round. I mean, this is going to get absolutely crazy. But the Indians right now, as I said, they're a half game back of Minnesota for that number 4 seed, and they are a game and a half back of Chicago for that number 3 seed right now. The Indians go to Minnesota this weekend. They begin a huge matchup. Shane Bieber, who in my opinion is by far should already be the Cy Young Award winner, has a chance if the Indians win the division to potentially be the MVP of the American League this season. He takes on Kenta Maeda tonight for Minnesota. Tomorrow night it'll be Zach Plesac against Rich Hill, and then Tristan McKenzie takes on Michael Pineda on Sunday afternoon. 3 really good pitching matchups. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, this is going to get interesting coming down to the wire in baseball. The National League, though, the National League is a little more set. Everybody knows the Dodgers are going to probably be the number 1 seed. The closest team to catching them is actually the 4 seed, the Padres. They are 3.5 games back. The number 2 seed, though, is the Braves. They're 5.5 back. Number 3 is the Cubs. They're 6 games back. Braves, the Cubs. The Braves are half a game ahead of the Cubs for that number 2 seed. The number 5 seed's the Phillies, 6 Cardinals, 7 Marlins, 8 Giants. And if you take a look at the playoffs ended today, it'd be an NL West matchup between the Giants and Dodgers at the top. It would be an NL East matchup between the Braves at 2, the Marlins at 7. It would be an NL Central matchup between the Cardinals at 6, the Cubs at 3. And then it would be a battle between the Phillies and Padres 4 and 5. Now, if you guys are wondering, well, wait a minute, the Padres have a better record than the Cubs and the Braves, but why are they the 4 seed? It's because the way the MLB playoffs is scheduled, the top 3 seeds are all the division winners. So even if the Padres have a better record than, let's say, the Cubs and the Braves, if they finish in second place of their division, they're dropping down to the 4th seed. So first 3 division winners by record 1, 2, and 3. 4, 5, and 6 is by the number 2 seed in each division. So again, if you take a look at the American League here, even though the Indians have a better record than the Astros, than the Blue Jays, they are the 7th seed because they are 3rd in their division right now. Again, I think that's kind of unfair. I would do it the way that the NBA does it, 1 through 8. It doesn't matter if it's in your division. If you if you have a better record than that team, in my opinion, you should be able to host. In the NBA, divisions don't matter, but in the NFL and the MLB, divisions matter. I do agree with the fact that the top 3 division winners should be seeded that way, but I think the wild cards 4 through 8 should be strictly by record. I don't think it matters if you're in 2nd or 3rd place. I think when you get to wild cards, I think it should be based off record. That's just me. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a wild finish here in the MLB. Like I said, I think the Dodgers are safe as the number 1 seed. They're the safest team in the National League. We've seen the Dodgers kind of falter. I know they're going to move Mookie Betts to second base, but, will that make a huge difference? We've seen the Dodgers pitching. We've seen Clayton Kershaw struggle in the postseason. And, last year they watched the eventual champion, Washington Nationals, who obviously this year in the COVID year have no chance to make the playoffs, so we are guaranteed to crown a new World Series champion. But, you take a look at all these teams. For the most part, we expected the A's, we expected the Rays, we expected Minnesota, we expected Houston, we expected the Indians, we expected the Yankees. The 2 surprises are really Toronto's your big surprise in the American League. Some people expected Chicago. I would give you that with the 8-team expansion. I would have given you that with Chicago. So I think Toronto's your real surprise in the National League. We all knew about the Dodgers. We all knew about the Braves. We all knew about the Cubs. We knew the Cardinals would be good. But there are some surprises in the National League. Nobody expected San Diego to be this good. Nobody really expected Philadelphia to be this good and in position for a 5 seed. Nobody expected, the Giants and Marlins to be playoff bound. So the National League, there's definitely more surprises. But I think overall the American League is the stronger, I guess you would say, conference. And in my opinion, man, the Indians, I hope they can get at least second place. But this is a big weekend series against the Minnesota Twins. All right, so let's move on here to our top 5 news stories of the week before we hit a quick commercial break. So our first story is obviously Von Miller going down with an injured ankle. Coach Fangio said it's possible that Von Miller could miss the season. Now, you guys know I was very high on Denver before all these injuries hit. Cortland Sutton just went down. Von Miller is down. I had Denver somewhere between 10 and 11 wins. I've knocked them back down to 8 or 9 with the Von Miller injury. I may have to knock them down to 7 or 8 with Cortland Sutton. I still like them in week 1 against the Tennessee Titans because I think that their defense is still good, and I don't like Tennessee as much as most people, though I think they're a pretty good football team. But I think the Von Miller injury really hurts Denver a lot going forward. You take a look at Oklahoma City. Billy Donovan has been fired, and I say thank freaking God. Billy Donovan is out as the coach in Oklahoma City, and in my opinion, this is justified because Billy Donovan had terrible late game management, especially you take a look at Game 7. I really thought the Thunder, if they had a better coach, they would have had a better play setup at the end of the game. Billy Donovan didn't know how to use his timeouts. It was poor clock management. It was poor everything on Billy Donovan's part. Otherwise, they would still be in the playoffs playing the Houston Rockets. And by the way, I'm sorry, small ball does not work. Talk about that a little bit later. But, yeah, if the Thunder had a better coach, they would be in the second round right now. It'd be interesting to see who they get as their head coach, see who they compare with Chris Paul, a very smart point guard in mind. I saw Chauncey Billups in the running for the Pacers job. I wouldn't even mind to have Chauncey Billups come over and coach the Oklahoma City Thunder, only because him and Chris Paul, I feel like, could work in synergy there. And a story here on my Philadelphia Eagles, Jason Peters, after a back-and-forth conversation and a debate about will he play left tackle, will he stick at right guard, will the Eagles pay Jason Peters enough to play left tackle? Obviously, after the injury towards Andre Dillard, it is official. Jason Peters will be playing left tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles this season. That will mean Matt Pryor goes over to right guard. And, man, I am so happy about this because, obviously, Jason Peters, is a way better left tackle than Matt Pryor, and we need to protect Carson Wentz. And the offensive line was my biggest concern for the Philadelphia Eagles going forward this season. It was my biggest concern on the offensive line for years. For years, I haven't had to worry about it. You've had Peters, you had Somalia, you had Kelsey, you had Brooks, you had Lane Johnson. Obviously, now this year, Brandon Brooks goes down with an injury. Andre Dillard goes down. So we needed to slide Jason Peters back to left tackle. And it was the right decision. Wayne Johnson took a pay cut for it to happen, but I say pay the man to protect Carson Wentz's backside. Jalen Ramsey signed a huge extension with the Rams. It's worth 5 years for $105 million, which is about $21 million a year. And the Rams, man, they use that money to not pay Todd Gurley, to pay Jalen Ramsey. They have a bunch of expensive players, and I just don't get the feeling for the Rams this year. You guys are going to see, if you guys saw my NFL predictions I posted on Twitter, I am a huge advocate of the Arizona Cardinals this year. I think the Cardinals, Rams, and Seahawks could all finish above 10, 11 wins. Matter of fact, if you look at Seattle's schedule, I think it's one of the easiest in the league. That's why I think they go 14-2. I'm not sold on the Rams this year. I think they could lose all 6 division games. I just don't think they're better than any of the teams. I know division games are tough, but I think Arizona, San Francisco, and Seattle are just way better than the Rams. And I don't think the Rams are well coached. I think Sean McVay's overrated. I think Jared Goff's overrated. I think the whole Rams team is overrated. And they paid Jared Goff way too much money. They made a mistake, and now they're paying for it. And finally, real quickly here, LeBron becomes the all-time playoff wins leader with the Lakers Game 3 win over the Rockets. I thought that was just really special. You take a look at all the playoff, moments LeBron James has had in his career. And the fact is that he has now finally became the all-time playoff wins leader. obviously looking to make it to his 10th NBA Finals this year and his 9th in 10 years. I mean, that's absolutely crazy. Obviously, as I've talked about on this show a lot, it's going to be hard to overcome the Clippers, but it looks like the Clippers will be his last obstacle to get to those NBA Finals. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, coming up next on the show, in the next half an hour, I'm going to do you guys two favors. The number one favor is I'm going to give you guys, if you guys are betting people, I'm going to be giving you guys 5 games to bet on this weekend, my 5 best odds for this weekend. I like some favorites, I like some underdogs that take the points and or win outright. Plus, I'm going to be building you guys a fantasy football lineup for week 1, going strictly through the ESPN waiver wire. I found players that are available in less than 50%, available in more than 50% of ESPN.com leagues right now. And, it could give you guys a win. I will give you in the running back market and the wide receiver market. Not that strong, but I think there is a very strong quarterback market. If you're looking for a streaming quarterback, anything like that. Plus, WKSU News Intern, plus PSR Sports Director Sean Fitzgerald joins us at the top of hour 2. This is Brennan's World on this Friday, and we will be right back. Alright guys, welcome back here to Brandon's World on this Friday. Again, if you guys are watching live on the YouTube stream, I apologize, but we can no longer have music playing during background breaks due to the fact of YouTube copyright, so I do apologize for that. Maybe I'll try to find some classical music in the background just like during breaks from now on. But you guys got to remember here that we only have about 2 more shows this semester, actually, because what's going to be happening is we're going to be doing a show next Friday, the 18th. We're doing a show the Friday after that, the 25th. And then after that, I am on social media hiatus. If you guys are not unaware, I take a hiatus every year during the postseason that the Cleveland teams are in. I did it with the Cavs in 2016. It works. I'm sticking to it. I did it in 2016 for the Indians. It almost worked, unfortunately. Obviously, it didn't, but did it in 2017, did it in 2018, did not do it in 2018 for the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, this is only a Cleveland thing. I take part of LeBron's 0-30 for the postseason, so I'll be doing it for the Indians for the 2020 playoffs as long as that run happens. Now, when that run is over, I'm going to be sitting back planning things. We may do a show here or there, but there's going to be so much going on in November and December with us here at Kent State, with finishing a class and doing all that. We may not have time for a show. I'm going to be really busy over the next couple of months. But with that being said, make sure you stick around because we at least have 2 more good shows after this. But yeah, I can't wait to see what the future holds. As I've already said, January 2021 is going to be a big time for this brand. But with that being said, we got to jump in here because I have for you guys my top 5 best bets for the NFL Week 1. I'm going to try to play some on-time music in the background. Let's hope we don't get copyrighted. And here we go. So, with this being said, my first best bet for Week 1 for the NFL season would be I'm taking Seattle -1 over the Atlanta Falcons. I love these -1, -2, +1, +2 bets. Because rarely in the NFL do you see 1 and 2 game decisions. Most of them are right 3 or 4 points. So when I see -1, I'm taking it. And look, last year I got burnt by the Atlanta Falcons. I thought the Falcons were going to win the NFC South at 13-3. I thought they were going to make the NFC Championship game. I love Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Kevin Ridley. I thought that defense was going to come back strong. But they burned me with that 1-7 start. Obviously, they finished down the stretch 6-2, so there's optimism for Atlanta. My problem is I just don't trust them, and they're by far the 3rd best team in their division. Plus, I know they're traveling across the coast, but as I well know, Russell Wilson loves playing in the East Coast, and Russell Wilson's the 2nd best quarterback in football, and he was playing in domes. Give me Seattle -1 over Atlanta. My next best bet, this might be the bet that I am 100% taking because I love it. The Cardinals +7 going to San Francisco. Now, look, we all know the tradition of the Super Bowl loser. The first week bet, they come out flat unless you're the New England Patriots. In my opinion, San Francisco's going to have a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover. Remember, they haven't been able to practice against speed. There's been no preseason. Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, the New Arizona Cardinals with that Cliff Kingsbury college system, with the defensive additions, with Jordan Hicks, Patrick Peterson, Chandler Jones. This Arizona team, ladies and gentlemen, is here and now. I would argue they're right there with San Francisco and Seattle. I think this Arizona team is going to shoot through the roof this year. It's mainly because I have so much trust in Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. That was such a great trade for Arizona. I thought Arizona played hard last year. This year they take that next step. And I love them to go out and surprise the Niners. I would take Arizona straight up. Not even the points. I think the Cardinals get the upset here. So that is my best bet. Cardinals +7 against the Niners. My next bet I would make. The Cowboys -2.5 at the Rams. Look, I just talked about it. I think the Rams are a mess. They lost Brandon Cooks. Yes, they have Robert Woods. Yes, they have Cooper Kupp. We don't know who their running back is. Jared Goff is overrated. Sean McVay is overrated. They have a new defensive coordinator. Their defense is falling apart. And nobody knows what this with this Mike McCarthy. Why did I say Patrick Mahomes? That's an error on my fault. With this Mike McCarthy Dak Prescott passing attack, that's where I was getting at, passing attack, is going to look like. They have CeeDee Lamb. They have Michael Gallup. They have Amari Cooper. They have Ezekiel Elliott. As much as I hate to admit it, this Cowboys offense should be pretty good. Their detriment is going to be their offensive line. But I said it last year on Black Squirrel Radio, and I'll say it again. I would take Dak Prescott over Jared Goff. As much as I don't like Dak Prescott, as much as I think Carson Wentz is out of this world, if you give me between Dak Prescott and Jared Goff, give me Dak Prescott. He's a really good leader. He's efficient. Again, nobody knows what this Mike McCarthy team's going to look like. The Cowboys' defense is better than the Rams. Plus the fact that the line is 2.5. To me, the Cowboys win by 3. I win, so I would take that bet. My next bet here. This one I'm starting to get a little bit shaky on. But the Titans going to Denver, the late Monday night game. Denver is 1.5. Either way, between Denver and Tennessee, I would take this because I don't think it's going to be a 1-point game. But I will say this, I'm starting to get nervous about my Denver pick. They may not have Cortland Sutton. They don't have Von Miller. That neutralizes Bradley Chubb. But my opus, Drew Lock, Noah Fant, the receivers they have, Melvin Gordon, Philip Lindsay. I think this Denver team is loaded. And I think they're still a very good football team. And in my opinion, against Tennessee, we don't know how good Ryan Tannehill is going to come out of the gate. You got to stuff the box with Derrick Henry, and you got to open play. If A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, Tajay Sharp, Adam Humphries, if those weapons beat you, fine. I'm not wanting Derrick Henry beat me. I trust Vic Fangio and Denver's defense just enough. I'm going to say Denver wins by 3, and that will win me the bet. And finally, my last bet of the weekend I would place. I'm not picking the Browns to win, but I would take the +8 against the Ravens. Look, we talked about this already when it comes to coaching and stuff with this weekend. I think the first month of the season, coaching is going to really matter. That being said, I do think John Harbaugh is a better coach than Kevin Stefanski. But like we talked about with Mike McCarthy, nobody knows what this Kevin Stefanski offense is going to look like. We have an idea. We've seen it with Minnesota. I think Austin Hooper and David Njoku are going to have big roles in this offense. Rather than Richard Higgins, I really think that Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham's targets are going to be reduced, and the Browns are going to run the football a lot with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. That's why I have them +8. The Browns always play the Ravens well. And the Browns team this season, in my opinion, only goes as far as Baker Mayfield takes them. I think that's the bottom line. I think their defense will be fine because I do think the Browns have a very good pass rush and they'll complement the lack of linebackers and secondary. But this team should be able to score points. And let me just say this here as I turn off the primetime music. Let me just say this, man. I really do feel like this year the Browns should be able to win 9 or 10 games. And if Baker Mayfield is that franchise quarterback, he will have a good year this year. And they just put up a shot for Baker Mayfield. Talk about this all the time, man. He's got all the weapons in the world. Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Rashard Higgins. He finally, I think, has a coach that believes in him. But there's a reason why the Browns picked up Case Keenum. And it's not just because if Baker Mayfield gets hurt that Case Keenum knows Kevin Stefanski's offense. I'm telling you right now, if Baker Mayfield desperately struggles to begin the year, and the Browns start off 2-4, 2-5, remember, we never thought Marcus Mariota would get replaced in Tennessee by Ryan Tannehill. The Titans went 2-5. They made the AFC Championship game with Ryan Tannehill. The Vikings won 13-3 with Kevin Stefanski as their QB coach, and the quarterback was Case Keenum. There is a reason for Case Keenum being on the Browns, and in my opinion, if Baker Mayfield struggles, we could see a Case Keenum switch. But for week 1, with so much uncertainty and the way the Browns play football, man, if you could force Lamar Jackson to throw because he's a good thrower, he's not a great thrower yet, if you can just stack the box and you can limit that run game. We know the Ravens are going to try to pull some new surprises with J.K. Dobbins and all that. But my goodness, man, I think this matchup is really well for the Browns. They play well in the division. And I will take the Ravens by 3 or 4 in this game. But I'll take the Browns to cover. I really like this bet for the Browns to cover. And in my opinion, that's the 5th bet I would make this weekend. So again, if I was a betting man, which I don't bet, but I love looking at these lines, and these are the lines I would place. So for those of you guys that bet, I am here to help you. I would take Seattle -1 over Atlanta. I would take Arizona +7 over San Francisco. Dallas -2.5 at the Rams. Denver, -1.5 over Tennessee. And then the Browns +8 against Baltimore. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I am moving on to help you guys in your fantasy lineup, because what we're going to be doing, as I plug in my computer here real quick live here on YouTube, we're going to be building a lineup through the ESPN waiver wire. What I did is, I play ESPN fantasy football. I have 2 drafts. I only had 1 player last night. It was Tyreek Hill, and thank God he scored that touchdown, or I would have been wrong on Tyreek Hill. I'm pretty angry. But Tyreek Hill, thanks for helping me out with that touchdown, and thank you, Patrick Mahomes, for throwing it. With that being said, I went for the ESPN waiver wire, and I scoured it. And this was hard to do, man. But I found players that are available in more than 50% of ESPN.com fantasy leagues. That's 10-team leagues, 12-team leagues, 14-team leagues, 16-team leagues. And I found, in my opinion, some guys who, if you're looking for an extra running back, if you're looking for a streamer quarterback, if you're looking for a defense, if you're looking for a wide receiver, I think these guys could desperately help you out this weekend. So I'm going to be building a lineup through the waiver wire. We're going to do this every week. So let's start off here with quarterback this week. And I got Phillip Rivers. Right now, Phillip Rivers is only on 17% of fantasy leagues. Now that means he's available in about 83% of ESPN.com leagues. Go get this man. Okay? He is at Jacksonville, and 16.5 points is Phillip Rivers' projection. And we all know, man, Jacksonville is one of the worst teams in the league. They're going to be the worst team in the league. They have no defense. I think Phillip Rivers and the Colts light up Jacksonville. I love that matchup at quarterback this week. I love Chris Thompson for the Jacksonville Jaguars now. They're starting running back. I was the Washington football team. I apologize. Chris Thompson, he's on only 42% of teams, so go get him. He's projected to have 9.5 points. Look, we don't know who the Jacksonville running back is going to be, but we know they're going to be down a lot of throwing, and Chris Thompson is their pass catching back, and there's not a lot of running backs available on the waiver wire market. The other running back I chose was my Philadelphia Eagle, Boston Scott. Boston Scott's going to be the number 2 man behind Miles Sanders. He's going to have a role in the passing game. He's projected 8.5. And with the Washington defensive line being really good, I expect Doug Peterson to come out, throw a lot of screens, get the ball in the hands of Miles Sanders, who I think is a huge day, and Boston Scott. I do expect Boston Scott to have a role in this offense, and I think he's worth a flyer in fantasy, because if Miles Sanders does go down, remember, I like handcuffing running backs in fantasy. As a matter of fact, I drafted Dalvin Cook in one league. I also drafted Alexander Madison. I know some people don't love drafting handcuffs. I do. I think if you want to handcuff, Boston Scott's a good option for you. At wide receiver, I'm going to go with Larry Fitzgerald, Anthony Miller, and then Brashard Perriman in my flex. Larry Fitzgerald is only, 41.6% on teams, so he's more than 50% available. He's projected 8.5 against San Francisco. And look, I already talked about it. Got Kyler Murray being really strong. Got that run game. You got DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, and Christian Kirk are going to be in one-on-one coverage. And San Francisco didn't have a good number 2 corner opposite of Richard Sherman. So I love Larry Fitzgerald. Anthony Miller, again, another number 2 option at Detroit. He's projected 8.7 points. And we talked about it. I think Detroit's going to take away Allen Robinson, but I love Anthony Miller. Excuse me 1 second. I'm going to take a sip of water here. Sounds like my voice is getting hoarse. I apologize for that. But, Anthony Miller, that talks about, he's the number 2 option behind Allen Robinson, so I think he could be good there. And then in the flex, Brashard Perriman, he's available in 47% of leagues. At Buffalo, he's got 8.4 points. He's going to be the number 1 target for the Jets. The Jets don't have a lot of targets besides Le'Veon Bell. I think Brashard Perriman's going to be their number 1 wide receiver, though I don't think they move the ball that much. At tight end, I got Dallas Goedert. He is only on 27.2% of fantasy teams, which means he's available a lot in leagues. Dallas Goedert is projected at 8.4 points. And remember, Dallas Goedert is a top 10 tight end in the NFL, in my opinion. Tight end is very short. You get guys like Austin Hooper, Hunter Henry, Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz, George Kittle. But after that, Dallas Goedert is a really good option. The Eagles are going to run a lot of 12 personnel, and I think Dallas Goedert has a chance to catch a touchdown pass or two. Look, the Eagles wide receivers are better. They're still not the greatest. Take it from me. Jalen Reagor's going to be out this week. It looks like he has a chance to play, but I doubt it. If he does play, I don't think he's going to have much impact with a wrist injury. Alshon Jeffrey's still on. I still don't believe in J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. So it's basically you got Deshaun Jackson, you got the two running backs in Sanders and Boston Scott, and then the two tight ends who are going to have a heavy workload in Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. Don't be surprised if Dallas Goedert is a top 8 tight end in fantasy at the end of the year, and he actually gets more targets than Zach Ertz. I know the Eagles and Zach Ertz are in a contract dispute this year. The Eagles may end up trading Zach Ertz. I hope we don't. Let's be fair here, because I'd like to keep Goddard and Ertz. But in my opinion, Dallas Goedert is a monster, and he is a future star. Defensively, look, the Seahawks, they're available in 75% of leagues. They only have 5 points against Atlanta because people think Atlanta's going to score. I just don't like Atlanta. I like Seattle a lot. I think Seattle can create some turnovers. And out of the defense available, the Colts are not available. The Eagles defense is not available in a lot of ways. So I like Seattle's defense because I like the matchup against Atlanta. And Brandon McManus, the best kicker I could find, averaging, 7.6 points against Tennessee. The total amount of players in this lineup, again, if you had a Phillip Rivers, Chris Thompson, Boston Scott, Larry Fitzgerald, Anthony Miller, Dallas Goedert, Brashard Perriman, the Seahawks D, and Brandon McManus, you would average around 82 points, which isn't really enough, to score to win. But if you're looking for a couple of these guys, with a big lineup, they get out. But you can't really win if you're building a lineup for the waiver wire. And that's mainly because the receivers and running back options are limited. You could find a quarterback, you could find a defense, you could find a kicker, you could probably find a tight end, but the running back and receiver rounds are limited. But let me just say this. If I kept my starting running backs and I kept my starting receivers and I just scratched out everybody else and went to the waiver wire, that's how you make your team. I always recommend going to the waiver wire every single week, picking up a running back or wide receiver that maybe you can stash and think you're going to have a big time later. Because it doesn't matter what good running backs you have to start the year. I always say your running backs and receivers seem to be interchangeable. If you have a good tight end, you don't really interchange it a lot. Same with a quarterback. But you gotta stay consistent, man. Running back and receivers are always changing, especially running backs. I feel like I have a different running back in my fantasy starting lineup every single week. Just because guys are getting hurt and there's new starters, and you just can't really find a good running back, in my opinion, in the draft outside, really, the second or third round. That being said, there's your building a lineup for the waiver wire week 1. We would average 82 points. I'm going to keep an eye on that and see how that does. And again, my best bets for the week, I already put in. I hope you guys make those bets. Those are my best picks. We'll do that next week as well. Coming up at the top of the hour, we're going to have WKSU News Intern Sean Fitzgerald, the sports director at Squirrel Radio, as well as the co-host to Pass the Mic. He's got a lot of names, a lot of duties. I haven't really talked to Sean about sports in a long time. We're going to look at the Browns season outlook. I'm projecting somewhere between 8 and 10 wins. I think they get that 10 number. I think they get the wild card round. Whatever the matchup this year with the Ravens week 1. We're also going to dive into Brady against the Saints. Belichick in New England. Cam Newton. Who's winning that AFC East? Is it Buffalo? Is it New England? I've added some wins on New England since Cam Newton became the starter. Again, as I said last week, I was very surprised, to be honest, that Cam Newton was the starter. I actually thought that Brian Hoyer, Jared Stidham was going to start just because I thought, no preseason, Cam wasn't going to have enough time to know the playbook. So I was wrong on that. I admit it. We're also going to dive into the NBA bubble. Lakers, Clippers, looks like to be the Western Conference Finals matchup. I'm going to ask Sean who his favorite is in that series. Plus, what does Milwaukee do now, man? Giannis down and out, misses game 5. The Bucks are eliminated. Is this reminiscent of LeBron in 2009, 2010, when people were comparing those Cavs teams? I don't think so. I think Giannis is overrated, but we'll talk to Sean about that. Plus, we'll talk to him again about the MLB and the Indians' big series against the Twins. That's coming up, top of the hour, here on Brandon's World. Alrighty, guys, we should have Sean Fitzgerald here. I'm going to bring him in. Sean, how's it going, my dude?
That's going all right. How are you?
I'm doing good. I see you got your Browns drip on, I guess, man. Are you ready? It's opening Sunday.
Yeah, it's almost hard to believe that's already the opener, with everything that's gone on since March. I still remember I was having a fantasy baseball draft, and I'm now in that league's playoffs, funny enough, for the first time in that league's existence. But the next morning, the MAC tournament had yet to be canceled. I'm driving up to Cleveland, starting to hear the whispers, and then I just go into a parking garage, don't leave my car, and it's just, having this NFL season was probably the last thing on my mind with how everything has been going, like the last 5, 6, however many months it's been now.
Doesn't it feel like a year ago that happened? I mean, I remember specifically that day, and it just feels like forever ago. And now we're here, and a couple weeks ago, we were all worried if week 1 was even going to happen, and now it looks like hopefully, let's pray that we can get for this season on time.
Yeah, that day was also the last time I saw Enzo in person until a few weeks ago. So that was just like, something else in and of itself, just not really being able to see people or be like on air in the studio. That was just, a shock to me.
Right. So I got to ask you, as we start here today, you've been covering the Cleveland Indians games for WKSU. How has it been being down at the stadium? I mean, I saw your audio story on the game, and now you can hear, the sounds and everything. But tell me, man, give me a little bit of insight. What's it like?
Oh, boy. Yeah, it is something else in there. When I go in, especially when I'm in the press box, it seats up to 100 people. It's way bigger than I ever would have expected. It is absolutely massive in there. As I try to get a little bit of water to keep my throat hydrated.
Gotcha. So,
it's.
Do they expand the press box? Do they renovate it?
So basically, the press box, apparently it's always been about that big as far as I can tell. But inside the stadium, you have all those banners all around the area. You can see where I'm seated at in the press box. I'm seated towards the very one end of the press box, further away from Hamilton and everyone like that. So I'm at the one end, and I'm able to see the cardboard cutouts on one part of the lower deck and everything. But I love where I'm at because I'm able to have the windows open right in front of me, able to take pictures, and it honestly feels really nice in there. And I'm not going to lie, but it is a really nice view. And it also is just with COVID, you're only allowed to have up to 24 home media members in the press box and 11 away media members in that press box area. And the other night I was there, the Browns had that scrimmage or whatever, and it was like, oh, where is everybody? I completely forgot because I'm football has been the last thing on my mind. But it is, I've honestly started to come to not having fans there as much. The last few times I've been there, the only times where it's really been that awkward have been those moments where you're really close and you're just down, where it's 8th or 9th inning, same kind of scenario, and it's just there's no energy that's created by anyone else other than the team themselves. It's really interesting to hear and pick up on Andy Baines, I think it was, the hitting coach for the Brewers. I heard him go on his little tirade the other night when he got ejected. That was something else. I don't know how the TV crews handled that, if they had to basically shut off the audio or what. But you hear a lot of things that you normally wouldn't hear, and it just is very interesting. I definitely I've loved it. I feel like a kid in a candy store, but at the same time, I've been there, working on that postcard, or more so now just trying to get stuff done. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to adjust and be at a more full angle. For those of you who don't know or follow me, I actually sprained my ankle a couple days ago, but it's certainly gotten a lot better compared to what I thought I was going to be at right now. But it's really just crazy to think, we're like among the media, we're among one of only a couple hundred in America, totally across all the stadiums to be able to get in. And
I know it's absolutely insane. I would say watching baseball, it hasn't really had the biggest effect on me. I haven't really noticed the fans not being there as much as I have for especially basketball. I think that the NBA playoffs and just the NBA bubble in general has been tremendously hit by the fans, but I don't feel that way about baseball as much. I want to talk with you specifically about the Tribe. Obviously, a rough 4-game series against Kansas City, dropping the last 3. But the fact of the matter is they're only a half game back of the Twins for second place. They are 1.5 games back of the White Sox for the division. This is a big series against Minnesota coming up this weekend. And the way the MLB playoff format is scheduled this year, right now, unfortunately, even though because the Indians have a better record than Toronto and the Yankees, because of the way the format is, the Indians would be the 7th seed. Are you nervous at all about this wild card format? I alluded to it a little bit when I talked about this at the beginning of the show. Obviously it's 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 against 6, 4 versus 5. What worries me is it's a best out of 3. And, let's give the Rays, for example, the Rays have been the best team in the American League this season. We just saw the Indians lose 2 straight games against Kansas City. You lose 2 games in that wild card run, you're out. You're gone like that, and anything can happen. Does that worry you with our Indians specifically? Because that does worry me.
So in regards to being the wild card, I'm not as worried as I would have been, at the start of the season because of just how strong the pitching staff has been. I know you can only get so far with pitching, but this staff, McKenzie, Plesac, Carrasco, Savale, who's basically thrown, except for I think the other night, he's thrown a quality start, 6 innings or more every single start. And MVP and Cy Young, Shane Bieber, I know he hasn't been given those awards yet, but it's more than likely that he'll earn those.
At least the Cy Young. I think if the Indians win the division, MVP is possible, but I don't know if you can give a guy
he has had a bigger impact on this team than he could on any other team. He's basically the Verlander MVP kind of guy. He is the Kershaw MVP kind of guy. But just to get back to the main point, like in a short series, when you have Bieber and you're able to throw Plesac, I think, is your 2 or 3, and then I don't know if you throw Savale or Carrasco as your absolute third starter, but any of those 3, any of those 3 or 4 within those within that 3-game series, I am more confident in that than I am in a longer series. More so just because you have more pitching available to you right then and there. And then if you have to burn through it at all, you've used it up for that series, but you're able to advance. That's the only thing, is that if they suddenly have to burn through all of their starters, that's the only worry I have.
That's a good point. I guess my worry is this. Let's say Bieber's going to go out and Bieber's going to be Bieber. But let's say he has a little bit of an off night. Let's say he gives up 2 runs. That's an off night for Bieber. Let's be honest. Bieber gives up, he goes 7 innings and gives up 2 runs. That's an off night for a guy like Bieber. And the offense just doesn't produce. So you lose a game, maybe 2-1 or 1-0. That's what worries me is for 2 or 3 games, will this offense show up enough? Because I think over time, 5-7 games, I think an offense can show up. I don't know if an offense, you play that series, it's going to be so quick, and it's going to be in a bubble, too, from what I understand. I think the American League is going out to California. That worries me, too, because the Indians are built as a cold-weather team, pitching, bullpen, timely hitting.
I would like to interject with that right now, is that they do not play well in cold weather. They do not play well in April. They do not play too well in May. They warm up normally during the summer. Now, with how this season is playing out, they kind of got off to a slightly slow start, but given the circumstances of a 60-game sprint instead of a 162-game marathon, it's a lot different to have to judge that. The Indians are more so a team that has played better in those warm weather months once they've been able to get going. I don't think they're built for the cold weather at all. They are, they don't do well in those mainly cold weather months or months that are starting to heat up towards that warmer weather. So it could be to their benefit if they're able to play outside in LA. I don't know if, honestly, if that's 100% the case that they are going to go into a bubble. I have not been able to confirm that 100% either way. So, I mean, if they get to play in Cleveland, the only thing that benefits them and any other team that gets to play in their home ballpark is the ballpark dimensions. Because don't forget, like you have like Comiskey's Pull in Boston, the short porch at Yankee Stadium. You have the brick wall going up into the Bay and San Francisco, and then you have like the mini monster in left field at Cleveland. Like each ballpark has its own dimensions, and your only home field advantage is going to be knowing for your outfielders how the contours of the walls play, and maybe at Wrigley how maybe the wind patterns might go, just with how crazy those are over there. And they were even more strange prior to the installation of new like video boards and stuff like that over there.
Yep. Well, my thought is just, generally in cold weather, pitching wins. Generally in cold weather, the ball does not fly as well. So I get your point that the Indians don't usually play well in cold weather. But I think in a postseason environment where pitching and bullpen extremely matters much more in cold weather because we see typically a low-scoring game. In my opinion, that favors the Indians more than potential warm weather. If the Indians get into a 7-6 game, more likely than not, they're going to lose that game. The Indians are going to need to play smart 3-2, 2-1 games, in my opinion, in order to make it far enough. I think this team does have the pitching to potentially make a deep playoff run if the offense at least provides that spark they need.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I agree with you on that point. Pitching in October, that's the biggest thing, is that when you see a lot of these teams, while they haven't been able to hit, it's the pitching that's been, that one or two stars, whether it be in the bullpen or starters like that legendary run that Madison Bumgarner went on, or just, all those kinds of things. When you get to October, it's really just, if you're in, you get hot, you have a shot. That's the biggest thing. I was going to just make a point. What was it on related to that? With Indians lineup, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Cesar Hernandez, incredible when you're signing, probably not going to be back. You got Jose, doing Jose things. Lindor is heated up finally. Santana, I think he's doing just fine. He draws enough walks to offset not being able to.
Yeah, I mean, his walks are basically a base hit. I mean, he gets a walk once every game. So.
Franmil Reyes doing well. Naquin, picking up slack. I haven't seen enough of Josh Naylor to be able to pass judgment on him. But really, your two spots are if you can get Roberto Perez healthy enough, because I think ever since he injured his shoulder, whether it be on opening night or just, in that opening series against Kansas City, he's not been quite the same. So if you can get him right, that's one hole in the lineup that you kind of strengthen up a little bit from within. And then all you really have to worry about, in my opinion, is maybe that last outfield spot, that number 9 hitter, whether it's the Shields, whether it's Mercado, because I've seen Mercado start to come around a little bit after getting off to a very slow start. He was someone who, entering the 2019 season, I was advocating a lot for. And, I actually got to see his first Major League home run on my birthday in person, so that was really cool. But, if Mercado is able to turn around and get anywhere close to where he was last year, I mean, this lineup goes from looking like terrible to decent. I'm not saying, top 5, top 10, but maybe.
No, I completely agree. I will counter with you with Perez with this. Number one, in my opinion, he's absolutely the best defensive catcher in baseball. I would not rather have anybody else back there but Roberto Perez for the playoffs. I think he does such a great job with all of our pitchers. Number two, I would say this. We were all concerned about Roberto in the 2016 playoffs, and Roberto even in 2017, 2018 when he played. He is a clutch postseason hitter. Roberto may not have the greatest average in the world, but when you need that peak hit, Roberto always seems to step up. Let me just say this. I think this Indians team could make a deep – the Indians could go two ways. they could make a deep playoff run, or they could be eliminated in the wild card round and swept.
I mean, those are the only two true outcomes with this team. I mean, if they get into though that if they end up as a division winner, I think they're going to get at least to the second round of the postseason. But this year, being the 8-team field for each league, it is more so. I think it would still be termed as probably like the AL DS. I'm going to guess. The thing is, I don't remember if I've seen it being termed as a 3 out of 5 or a 4 out of 7 kind of series.
So the way it's going to work is the wild card round is the best out of 3, and then it goes to normal. So ALDS best out of 5, ALCS best out of 7.
Yeah.
And so I guess the other question I have with you on the tribe is Zimmer. What do we do with Zimmer? I mean, Zimmer looked like I liked his new batting stance he had. He looked pretty comfortable. He's a very good defensive center fielder. But I mean, is time running out on Zimmer?
I think it's honestly, that's a fair assessment that it is. It's also just you haven't been able to get him enough at bats, and the same thing. Here's the thing with the outfield that was happening at the beginning of the year. You had too many outfielders to be able to give playing time to. That's why you saw Mercado not in there as often. That's why you started to see Zimmer once he faded and trying to figure out which pieces mix and match. You didn't see him in the lineup as often, and you saw him get optioned. I mean,
it's a double-edged sword, but you know what? I defended the Indians on it because I said, you know what? You got to find some outfielder because we always knew.
And the thing is, and I thought Zimmer was finally figuring it out. I thought he was going to be the answer. But, I think next spring is going to be his make it or break it year. You can't do much more than you already have for him already. It's just a very, very tough situation for him to be in, especially like if he had not sustained all those injuries. I think we would finally have a more definitive answer on what he is. I was surprised that they traded back in 2016 Clint Frazier over Bradley Zimmer at that point, because I thought Bradley Zimmer would be the one that they would trade out versus Frazier. But hey, like both of them have not been able to break into their respective major league outfields for extended periods of time. Other than
that's true.
Zimmer did have a time for a little bit where he had some stuff going on. He wasn't necessarily like a bona fide hitter, but he's always been a very good like defensive player. So that's always been a plus side for him. It's just a matter of can you keep him healthy enough to hit. That's going to be a thing. I think he still has a chance, and he's going to have a chance to prove that this coming spring. And if not, I don't know where he has options left or whatnot. I assume this is probably his last option year or whatever. To be honest, I know you'll probably bring this up with Mike Clevenger, and I'll just start it right now. I was shocked. I didn't even know that Clevenger had an option year left to get sent to the alternate training site. I knew Plesac did, but I did not know that. I did not know that Clevenger did. Although I guess it would probably be next year he would have probably run out of option years, is my guess. Or if he didn't, he would have had an option year, but he would have had to have. If I'm remembering right, I don't think I am for certain. He might have had to have consented to be sent down despite having that option. Right. There would have been some other process. But even dealing Clevenger, you see Naylor, coming in, he's helped out a little bit. It's not like he's the outfielder that we would have wanted to get a Gallo or whoever.
But for the value of that trade, you got Naylor over this year. Next year can be your everyday left fielder.
I love Cantrell. I love Cal Cantrell. I think
Cantrell, and I like the addition of edges too, because Leone and Taylor were not cutting in as backup catchers. We saw that when Roberto Perez came out. They couldn't hit a ball if it was thrown right at their face. I mean, at least Austin Edges is a decent backup catcher. Cantrell will help. out of the bullpen. That bullpen's been very solid all year long. It's been a good surprise to the team. We talked about it in just bulks, pitching, bullpen. And again, this lineup is good. They have good hitters. It's just about can that bottom of the order, can Naylor, can Perez, and can DeShields or Mercado, whoever that center fielder is, can they just get on base? We don't even need you to hit a home run. Can you just move the line down the line? The Indians are not going to hit a lot of home runs. They're going to do sacrifice flies. They're going to need to ground out for RBIs. They're going to need to do all the little things to produce runs. And I'm telling you right now, if the Indians get the lead early, this is the whole key for the Indians. Get the lead early. It doesn't even matter if it's 1-0 after 4 or 5 innings. If they can just get the lead, those pitchers just relax. But when those pitchers give up an early run, when they're down 1-0, when they're down 2-0, the hitters seem to press. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just mental, but I feel like every time the Indians score first, they're going to win the game, and every time they don't score first, they're going to lose the game. That's just how I feel right now.
I mean, I just don't know what to say to that. I don't know. But I did want to touch on one of the other prospects that I've been looking at a little bit more from that deal. Not Gabriel Arias or Joey Cantillo, but the infielder Owen Miller, who's able to kind of be like a Swiss Army knife. I think he's got a lot of upside, and I think he could be a Ben Zobrist kind of guy, like more so like prime Zobrist for this team. I like Miller a lot, but to your point with just, not really knowing like how the Indians are going to come out of it, I think it's the nature of the game. The game is meant to have the ebb and flow, and it's just, you're not going to always pick a winner right away. To kind of go to our sport marketing class that we share, you're never going to know what happens.
Last week, Sean, I said, why do we, whenever a trade, doesn't matter if it's the NFL, the MLB, the NBA, as soon as a trade happens, everybody rushes and goes, this team won, this team lost. And in reality, 90% of trades, unless it's the worst trade in the world, and it's clearly the worst trade in the world, 90% of trades, you got to wait like 2 or 3 years to see who technically won these trades. And a lot of times, it's a win-win deal.
Yeah, more so, I think it's just like, for the moment right there and then, and also, what am I going to say? There and then, and also just, the immediate impact. That's where you're trying to figure out who won, lost, and then you revisit those trades down the line and be like, okay, who really won and who really lost? Because you'll see trades flip on a paradigm to where, this team won because they won the World Series, whatever, on that rental, and but they kind of just lost at the same time because you have these prospects come up. Well, guess what? You had a bunch of teams probably in the past where like, the rental is the winner piece in this deal, not the prospects, because the prospects kind of flopped, because that's the thing that they are, prospects. You're not guaranteed anything. There's only a few prospects I'd say have ever been anywhere close to a guarantee. That's Steven Strasburg, Chris Bryant, Francisco Lindor, and a couple others. Like, don't really have many guarantees.
Even Lindor. Nobody expected Lindor to be this good.
Not for the power, but just, that he was going to be a good player.
Right.
Like, those are the 3 players that I listed off the top of my head that popped first in my head that, are basically guaranteed to be a good player.
Right. Okay, so you mentioned in the comments a little bit earlier. How about Toronto? They've been by far the surprise of the American League this year. It was the MLB standings here.
I don't think they're the surprise, honestly. Here's the thing with Toronto. Vlad Guerrero Jr., I saw him at the Home Run Derby in person last year. Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio. You got Teoscar Hernandez. Who else do you have out there? I mean, you've got some really, really nice, exciting youth on the hitting side. You just were able to get Nate Pearson up. He had a really good first start or two before running into a little bit of a shoulder issue. Hyunjin Ryu as part of your rotation. I mean, Danny Jensen. You've got so much talent, and not to mention that the Blue Jays got, I believe, Vanderbilt shortstop Austin Martin, I think it was, who dropped them at in the Rule 4 draft, and that was a shock because the kid I guess we're basically the same age, but we're at the point where like basically most of these players started getting drafted younger than I am. But
Right.
like they have so much young talent where you could see them putting together a dark horse campaign, maybe even over the course of a 162 game season. And I mean, really, just the Blue Jays have been impressive, and I've been, even if I didn't predict them right off the bat to be the team that was like, a complete surprise, I'd say your surprises rely more on Baltimore actually still being competitive, and that you have who is the other
Detroit
team?
beat
Yeah.
one of the
Well, they may not make it. Like Baltimore is not a surprise to me just based off of, this is a shorter season and based off the
Well,
talent they have. I mean, you basically have one of the keys to success in that you've got power, you've got youth, athleticism, and you've got a little bit of pitching.
Well, 3 points. Number one is, of course, Toronto. I believe they're either their GM or their team president is
Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro.
yes, Shapiro, of course, the former team president of the Indians. The second point I would make is in terms of surprises. I know Baltimore has been a surprise in the league, but I'm talking about specifically playoff teams. Baltimore would not make the playoffs right now. That's why I say Toronto is the biggest surprise to me.
Yeah, looking at the 18 field right now for me, just trying to take a look at that.
Yeah,
real
I mean,
quick.
it would be here. I have it right here. So if the playoffs ended today, the first round matchup, the Yankees would go to Oakland to take on the A's. The Indians would go to Tampa to take on the Rays. The Astros would go to Chicago to take on the White Sox, and Toronto would go to Minnesota to take on the Twins. I do gotta say though, I'm looking at the playoff structure. Maybe it's just based off records, but I don't like the way that they formatted these playoffs because, in my opinion, the wild cards should be ranked by record. It shouldn't just go the second place teams get 4, 5, and 6 because the Indians have a better record than the Astros and the Blue Jays, but because they're third in their division, they're knocked all the way down to the 7th seed.
I think you have to take into account it's just weird this year in that this is going to be a one-off thing. I think this is also incentive for them to be like, hey, if you want a guaranteed spot in this 8-team postseason, you better play well and not tank like the Yankees did and just end up as a wild card one year when it was still the 4-team wild card playoff format. Because otherwise, you're not going to have a guaranteed shot to get in because you may have 3 teams better than you rather than 1 or 2 for that 8th wild card, for that second wild card spot. So that was their incentive. Like if you want to be in the playoffs, be one of the best 2 in your division, and you're in. If you're trying to go for that 7, 8 spot, you're not guaranteed. That would be, and this is just something that came up from the top of my head. I literally have not thought too much in depth about this, and it's just,
No, it's a fair point. I will say this, and it's going to be a counterpoint, but I'm just going to say it. If the Indians win the World Series, I'm obviously going to celebrate like crazy, but it's got to have an asterisk on it. I'm sorry, it does. This is not like the NBA where you just finish 8 games out and then you go right in the playoffs. You're taking away over 100 games. It's a 60-game season. Anything could happen. We've seen we saw last year teams that get hot in April and May are in last place by September. It's just not normal. Nothing is normal about this. We've seen the good teams have been good. Generally, bad teams have been bad. There have been some surprises. But in my opinion, look, if the Indians win the World Series, we can celebrate like crazy. We can call it a legit World Series all we want. But it does have to say on there in the history books, asterisk, 2020 season shortened to 60 games due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's still a championship for me because with the way this year has gone, especially just everything, like whoever comes out on top of this, they're gonna be champions. I think
it's gonna come down to the healthiest team and the smartest team and the team that plays. That's what every year it comes down to. But that's what more than ever.
I'd still say though that among especially even the American League, those teams were already going to be competing for those spots, those first 7 or 8 teams. were going to be in there. Atlanta in the National League. Philadelphia, I knew was going to compete. I just didn't think they'd be, in second place right now with the National League
Absolutely. The
struggling.
Dodgers, the Braves, the
Chicago, St. Louis, I was expecting to be there, but for different reasons other than their winning percentage. The Dodgers, I was expecting there. I think I had the Padres listed as a pick for one of my playoff teams. I predicted well before we had everything all finalized, but I didn't necessarily list them as when they would. The team I was hoping would be in there was kind of going to be the Cincinnati Reds. The National League is more of a crapshoot than it is in the American League.
Yeah, the National League. I mean, the Reds and the Brewers both in the NL Central have had disappointing seasons.
But also, just don't forget that the Cardinals, because of the whole COVID situation they had, they're going to be basically playing doubleheaders almost every day. Practically, this is maybe more hyperbole, but also, the winning percentage is what bothers me. Is that it shouldn't be I get that it was COVID that caused a lot of missed games, but if they get in by technicality of winning percentage and those other two don't, I don't like that. That's the one thing I don't like.
I mean, the Cardinals they could potentially play, 10, 15 games less than potentially other teams. And this man we can't make the games up. We're just going to go by winning percentage. Okay, well, for what, the first month of the season, weren't the Marlins in first place because they only played 2 games and they won both of them? Come on.
Just in general though, I know that's just a sticky subject, but it's just so many variables this year. It's crazy.
I agree. All right, hey, I do want to move on to football though, because we do have a Browns game this weekend. Browns are going to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. You probably heard me earlier. I got the Browns going 10-6. I don't have them winning this game, but I would easily take the +8 for the Browns to cover. I think this is a really close game. Obviously, we don't know what's going to come out of this Kevin Stefanski offense. We have an idea. I think Odell and Jarvis are going to be used less. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt are going to be used more. Austin Hooper is going to be a big weapon in this offense. I think, though, this is the make-or-break year for Baker Mayfield.
Oh, yeah, it certainly is. It's year 3. You finally get to see what he's made of, and he's in a system that should hopefully play to his strengths. We'll have to just see, where things kind of go from here. It's a big thing for him this year. I don't really have any other words other than just saying for him to just go out, compete, try to prove that he's finally Cleveland's franchise.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, Sean, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. I want you to give me a team who maybe a lot of people aren't thinking about who could potentially make the playoffs or fly underneath the radar. For me, that is Arizona by far this year. I'm a big fan of the Cardinals this year. And a surprise bad team that a lot of people are thinking could be, 7, 8, 9, 10 wins, who do not think that they are going to be a very good football team this year.
I'm going to go with the bad team first, and I'm going to say it's going to be the Packers because they did not surround Aaron Rodgers with enough weapons in the draft. Rodgers, I'm not saying anything bad on him. I'm just saying that I don't think he's going to be able to carry this team to the playoffs the way he did because the defense stepped up quite a bit last year. That defense in Green Bay normally is like Swiss cheese, no pun intended, but it's literally it literally helped carry that team a little bit too. Not to the degree that San Francisco did, but Rodgers is not capable of having at his age all of that. Now, granted, I saw him talk on the Pat McAfee show about how his arm is for the first time in something like 16 years doesn't hurt. That does sound like it could scare some folks in a good way for Packers fans, bad way for the rest of the league. But they're the one team that I think could definitely be out of it. In terms of a surprise team maybe making it, I don't really have a good one in my back pocket I could say would make it. I don't think the Jets are going to get there.
No,
I don't think. I think the team that might make the most sense is either the Chargers or the Raiders. I know Denver's a popular sleeper pick, but I think the Raiders are especially. You have Josh Jacobs in your backfield. You have some decent wideouts with like Tyler Williams. Hunter Renfrow, I think, might actually have a breakout year. I love him. He's been a good player ever since he came out of Clemson. There's just
I like the Raiders. I like Derek Carr. I like their offense. There's just something to me, they're by far the third best team in their division. I don't think they're as good as Denver. I don't think they're as good as Kansas City. I think that hurts them, and I also think they have a really tough schedule. That's also what I think hurts Denver. I think you look at a team like the Indianapolis Colts. They are well coached.
I would not say that they would be a surprise team to me. That's why I'm not saying the Colts are.
Okay, well, some people have between 7 and 9 wins. I think they could potentially get into the playoffs. The team I love this year, I mentioned this so many times, people are flying under the radar. I think Arizona is going to be so good this year. Mm-hmm. I think you look at their schedule. I flat out love this football team. I love Kyler Murray. I think he's a flat-out star. I think Kyler Murray could be a top 5 quarterback in the league this year. I flat out love Kyler Murray. I love DeAndre Hopkins. They have the number 1 wide receiver in football to me. And, yes, he's better all around than Michael Thomas. You have DeAndre Hopkins. You have a defense with a great pass rusher in Chandler Jones, a good middle linebacker, Jordan Hicks, a good corner, Andrew Peterson. They have everything set up. And the only thing that worries me is, yes, they're the third, worst team in their division, but they got easily the hardest division in football. They're way better than the Rams. I think people are totally overrating the Rams and underrating the Cardinals. And I think it's going to go to the Cardinals deficit. And I mentioned this earlier in the show. Arizona +7 at San Francisco. I'm taking it all the way. And I have drafted Kyler Murray in both my fantasy football leagues this season, Sean. I think Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals have the chance to win the division this year, if not get close, and they're going to be a wild card team at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that rather than your prediction of 13-3, they're more of a 11-5 team in my eyes, just because that defense isn't where it needs to be. The defense is not good enough to go 13-3. I think 11-5 is more realistic. Yes, they got Isaiah Simmons, but he's not going to be a solve everything problem right there. It's just, I think the offense will be good enough, but I don't think the defense is on the level to be a 13-3 team. That 13-3 to me makes it sound like they're super elite. I don't think they're at that level. I think they're very, very good. I don't think.
My thing is, though, their schedule to me is so soft. I mean, look at these first, let's call it 5 games of the year. They got the Niners, who I know it's tough, but they're coming off the Super Bowl hangover. I think that's a win for Arizona. Then they got the Washington football team, the Lions, the Panthers, the Jets. I mean, those first 4 games, that's a 4-0 start. Then you have at Dallas on a Monday night, which I think they can win that game. Then they have Seattle, which will be tough, but then they got Miami. They got Buffalo at home, which helps them to their benefit. They have Seattle again. I mean, the schedule to me really works out. They got the Giants on the schedule. They got the Rams twice, so I think they can beat them both times. So to me, when I did these predictions, I went game by game of the schedule. And I know Arizona is not a realistic 13-3 team, just like Green Bay was not a very good 13-3 team last year. But the schedule helps.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, I had to respond to something really quick with that was time sensitive, so I apologize.
You're good. All right. Really quickly, I do want to talk about I want to get your thoughts. Brady and Tampa Bay, Belichick going in with Cam Newton in New England. I mean, everybody's saying, you can't doubt the Patriots until somebody knocks them off. I'm saying I'm down the Patriots all the way. I mean, they have 0 weapons. Cam Newton doesn't have anybody to throw the ball to. Don't give me Kent State Illuminati Julian Edelman, okay? He's running with a piano on his back. I don't want to hear it. They don't have any deep threats. They have a couple running backs. That's about it. This team is Cam or bust. I mean, I had them somewhere between 6 and 8 wins. I think I gave them a couple more wins only because I knew that Cam was going to be the starter. But for people to say that New England's still the top dog in this division, I don't see it. Miami's improved, and so is Buffalo. I think Buffalo has a chance to take the division, though their schedule was really hard.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo, I think Buffalo can still be really good. I like New England, especially with a Cam Newton that has something to prove. The Jets are a wild card if Sam Darnold's able to overcome the dysfunction of Adam Gase. Gase has been a good coach for a long time, but it's more so just ever since he became a head coach, a lot of his flaws have become very transparent. Hold on. Let me finish. But I'm not saying that the Jets are anywhere near it. I think the Bills, though, for me right now, are in a virtual tie with the Patriots because I just don't know how, this is the first time we've seen a Brady-less team in 20 years. And it's really just crazy to think that still, and that I just think Buffalo, it's all going to depend on if Josh Allen is able to improve his accuracy, especially now that you've added Stephon Diggs to go along with John Brown, and you have Devin Singletary in the backfield, along with Zach Moss, who, some people are very high on, especially in fantasy. I mean, just with that, you have a chance to challenge Belichick on the New England Empire. But with Brady and Tampa Bay,
down. The Empire to me is down. It's over. It was over last year in Week 17 when Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Miami Dolphins drove down on them 75 yards and 8 or 9 plays to clinch the number 3 seed for New England and the number 2 seed for Kansas City.
That was so fun being able to see
that. To me, that ended the dynasty. That ended the Empire. I don't think New England gets any. They could make the playoffs, but I don't think that they're anywhere close to a Super Bowl contender. What's more likely to me is they fall off to either 6 and 10 or 5 and 11. What I don't get is man, Trevor Lawrence by far the number 1 pick next year in the draft. We see what Jacksonville's trying to do everything they can to get him, and New England's just hey, we got 6 defensive players up and out. We got no weapons on offense, but we're still trying to win games. What are you doing? Do you not want to win Super Bowls? I mean, I get it. Cam Newton's an okay quarterback. I get it. He's going to win.
He's not an okay quarterback. He was an MVP, and he's just had injuries the last 2 years. I think a Cam Newton who is healthy, Cam Newton could do a lot for this franchise.
He's long gone.
All right. Do you want to make another bet like we did with the lottery a couple of years ago? You want to make another bet?
I don't know. Did you see the one over bets?
I mean,
what would the bet be?
I'm going to bet that Cam Newton is going to win the Comeback Player of the Year award.
Oh, that's easy, yeah.
And that he is going to get New England the division title and at least 11 wins.
At least 11 wins.
At least 11.
I'll take 11 wins. 11 and a half over under. I will go under 11. They will not win 11 games. I will easily take that. That's an easy bet.
Yeah. He'll win Comeback Player of the Year. He'll get New England at least 11 wins, and he'll get them at the AFC East division title.
So I want to clarify here. In order for you to win the bet, all 3 of those things have to happen, correct?
Yeah, because I know I've won a lot of our bets, and I'm trying to give you a chance here.
So you're saying, hold on. Let's say New England and Buffalo both go 11-5, and Buffalo wins the division because of a tiebreaker. Does that mean I win?
Yes.
I'll take
even as much as I will
take that.
As much as I'll be ticked off if that happens, that means, that I didn't get the third condition fulfilled. So basically, that means you would win.
All right. Well, sign me up then. We can decide a punishment at a later date.
Just do $5. We did 10 the last 2 or 3 times. So let's just do $5 or something like that.
5, I'm good. Done. Virtual handshake. Done. Folks, I'm winning $5 from Fitz here. All right. Before we end the show today, Sean, really quickly, I want to jump to the NBA bubble because Milwaukee, the favorite to make it out of the East, the team that won the most games in the regular season, it is gone. I know Giannis got hurt. I know he missed Game 5. Before that, though, they were down 3-0 to Miami. What does this team do in the offseason? You know they're probably going to offer Giannis the Supermax.
Mm-hmm.
What does this team do?
I think they hold on to Giannis. I think the biggest thing is that Giannis is the problem here in a way. And let me explain. Giannis in the playoffs keeps getting figured out by all these teams. He's not as dominant as he is in the regular season. Granted, the regular season, it's a grind, especially with, sometimes having to have those back-to-backs and whatever. The problem with him is that you've seen his numbers starting to dip in some of these postseason games, and that has been very alarming. It's nothing that his teammates have done to make him worse. It's all on him, and it seems like to me he might be getting in his head. Even last year, when they lost to the Raptors, if I'm thinking about this right, is that Giannis needs to just, and this is something that I could kind of tell just kind of even looking at photographs, not even, live game footage. You can see an athlete who's basically just struggling inside and just trying to figure out, what do I do? He's pressing, in my opinion. And I think if he's able to just talk to somebody and just get out of his own way and figure out, okay, these are the adjustments I have to make based off of what teams are doing to me in the postseason, because they realize there's certain dimensions of this game they can take away, and then they force him to struggle. If he learns how to adapt to that, and if he's not able to, use certain dimensions, but instead he's able to turn some of those weaknesses more into applicable strengths, you have a much scarier team, especially with Middleton, Bledsoe, and a couple other of their core pieces coming back. That would be the biggest thing. And if Giannis is able to improve on his weaknesses, even if his strengths are taken away in the playoffs, the Bucks will get to at least the Eastern Conference Finals next year, assuming that you have at least a 60-game format, or even to the finals. I'm not wanting to go either way definitively, because we don't know if there's something more to this, but that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm believing in right now. And I think they're going to hang on to Giannis. They'll obviously offer him the Supermax, and I will not be surprised necessarily if he takes it, mainly just because of how much he loves the city of Milwaukee. But then again, with everything that we've seen with, your Anthony Davises and other players, Giannis could ask for a move, but I don't think that's in his nature compared to other players.
I don't think it's his nature. I think he's going to play the contract out, but I don't think he's taking the Supermax. I have a theory on this, and it's two things. Number one, I think Giannis is too soft. I think his personality, I just don't see that dog in him. I don't think he can win a championship in Milwaukee the way the team is currently built. That's just me. So this is how I think it's going to happen. I think Milwaukee's going to mostly stay intact. I think they're going to make it to the playoffs next year. They'll get to either the semifinals or the conference finals. They'll lose to a Brooklyn or a Boston or a Toronto, and then Giannis is fleeing the scene. And I think you know where I'm going with this. And I hate to say it because it's going to be cheesing the system. And Giannis is going to made to be the worst guy in the league. But there's a team over there in the West Bay. They're in the West Bay. They have floated around this idea, and I hate it. I hate it. But realistically, you have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. You may or may not have Draymond Green. You're not going to have Andrew Wiggins, but let's just say they don't have Draymond. Let's just say Steph, Klay, Giannis. The dynasty back.
I'm trying not to throw something across the room.
I know. It makes me angry too. I don't want to see it happen. Let me be clear. Now, do I want Giannis to leave Milwaukee? Yeah, because I want to see it. I don't think he could.
I don't want to see him leave. I want to see a small market thrive. That's my thing. Is that Cleveland is a small market in terms of baseball. And, no one would have come to the Cavs in these LeBron years that we've had, unless, we had LeBron. That's why I like seeing teams like Milwaukee succeed. I want to see Milwaukee succeed. That's where I'm from more do you want to see him win a ring? I get that from your perspective, but from the way I view it is Do I want to see him succeed in Milwaukee? Yes, I want to see him do that. That's where I want to do.
A ring in Milwaukee, just like LeBron didn't think he could win a ring in Cleveland the first time.
Kind of think about it like, and I only know this because my good friend Cam Seco is a big Washington Capitals fan. The Capitals almost every year could not get past the first or second round of the playoffs with Ovechkin, and then they finally got past, and they finally same thing with the Nationals too. They could not get past the first round of the playoffs.
Star driven, Sean. It's completely star driven.
Can I finish my point?
And
I think if they can get the boogeyman off of them, they will get there.
When Richard Jefferson said Giannis is more of a Scotty than Michael, I gotta say right now, I gotta agree with him. I don't know if Giannis himself, and especially in this day and age in the NBA, because I don't think Chris Middleton's a number 2. I think he's a number 3. So either Milwaukee's gonna trade for a number 2 co-star, or Giannis has to leave to join up with somebody. That's just how today's NBA works. We saw it with AD this past offseason with Paul George. They joined LeBron and Kawhi Leonard, and now we are on a collision course, which I'm so excited to see. Lakers, Clippers, for my opinion, the NBA Finals. I know it's the Western Conference Finals, but I think the winner of that series won.
We basically had that the other year when Houston and Golden State played in that 7-game series, which I still think Houston should have won if not for a few fouls that did not get called.
Houston goes against everything I believe in life. They're just like, we're going to get rid of the big man.
Houston with Chris Paul and James Harden
would have beaten our Cavs. I still say it. I think Capella would have dominated us on the boards. I think that Houston team would have won the championship. But this Houston, I look around and I'm like, oh, so you're just going to run down, shoot a free, miss it, and get blown up by 20. They literally live and die. If they can get hot, they can make threes, they can win playoff games. I've given everybody this. But in a 7-game series, when you have 2, and I'm just going to say it, you have 2 choke artists on your team, in James Harden and Russell Westbrook. You have guys that can't miss threes, and it's what happened last night. You get blown up by the Lakers. They're going on Saturday night. Give me Lakers Clippers, 7-game series for the Western Conference Championship. Ugh, here we go. That's the series we all wanted to see.
I love the fact that Houston was able to at least piece something together, but I think Mike D'Antoni's job is done. They've tried to do everything they can, and he's tried his best, but it's just tough for Houston to win, especially when Golden State was so stacked. They would have won without having to deal with a Durant team out there.
I agree. I know that Chris Paul and James Harden were not getting along, but it just kills me because that 2018 team? Mm-hmm. That 2018 team that Houston had Golden State on the ropes, on the money, dead. They were up, what were they up like?
An injury and basically called fouls that should not have happened or should have happened, basically.
Yeah, but weren't they up 40-11 in Game 6? Wasn't it 40-11 in the first quarter or something crazy? How do you blow that?
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
Okay, really quickly, because we're gonna end the show here in a couple of seconds. Game 6, Warriors Rockets 2018. Let me see if I can find it. At the end of the first quarter, they were up 17. They were up 39-22. Okay, 17-point lead. At the end of the game, they lost 115-86. That was the final score. 115-86. Houston only scored 47 points in the rest of the 3 quarters.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know you don't like Houston. You and a friend of mine, a very old friend of mine, would love to talk about players like Kyrie Irving, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. You would totally get along on some of the viewpoints with that. You It's a long story.
You gotta have that dog. James Harden is a great offensive player. I give you, he's probably the greatest offensive player I've ever seen, greatest scorer ever. He just doesn't come up clutch in the postseason when it matters. And that's when it matters. There's only really like 2 or 3 guys that I trust with the ball in my hand in the fourth quarter. LeBron, Kawhi Leonard, and Kevin Durant. That's it. Everybody else in the NBA to me, AD, Paul George, Russ, James Harden, they cannot.
What about Dame? What about Lillard?
No, because I don't trust him.
You don't trust Lillard?
No.
Not after what he was pulling?
Way too many times in the fourth quarter down the stretch clutch games. I'm sorry, he's a great Robin. He's not a Batman. There's very, very, very few Batman. And by the way, I thought Steph Curry was a Batman. He's not. We've seen it now. When Durant went out in 2019 against Toronto, when Clay went out, Steph couldn't carry the load. That was Steph's chance to prove it. He couldn't prove it. They clearly needed Kevin Durant.
When Clay went out, it was towards the end of the game. I'll give Golden State that. But when Steph was healthy at the beginning of the season, he could not carry. He could not.
No, he cannot. And that's the thing. Kawhi Leonard, we've seen can carry. LeBron, we know can carry. And Kevin Durant, we know can carry. That's it. And I'm not talking about stretches. There's great. We've seen T.J. Warren put up 61. We've seen what Devin Booker did in the bubble. I'm not saying these performances are amazing because they are. But I don't sit here and overreact and say, oh, my God, these guys put up 61 points. They're great players. Can they win championships when it matters? It's great. You can average 35 points in the regular season. You can average a full triple-double like Russell Westbrook did. What do you do for me in clutch time when the game is on the line, when I need you to perform? What do you do for me? Nothing. I'm sorry. It's just the facts.
I mean, yeah. I don't have any response.
Perfect. All right, Sean. Well, thank you for joining us today. We're going to wrap up the show for today. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back here next Friday on Brand's World. Good to talk to you, Sean, about things about sports. I know we've talked about other things over the summer, but it's finally good to actually talk to you about sports.
Yeah. Go follow me at Fitz on Sports BSR. That's at FITZ on Sports BSR. Also, if you have the chance, go check out some of my WKSU material. I've been writing up the View from Pluto web posts. I have a feature with Brown's Chief of Staff, Callie Brownson, on the website with a fully transcribed Q&A. And I did a little bit of that, as we mentioned right off the top when I came in, a little bit of what's called an audio postcard, just a short, 68-second little audio piece that kind of gives you kind of a sense of what it's like to be inside the stadium with nobody in there. So all that stuff. And, make sure if you're not already following Brandon, make sure to do that. And, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, see you later.
All righty. And that was it for the show today, guys. Make sure you look over, right down below. The show will be up on the podcasting platforms tomorrow. And peace.